Today we talked about dividing a decimal number by another decimal number. And before we get into the numerical dividing numerically, I'm going to show you how to model it as a picture. And you're going to do this on your homework, so I'm going to give you an example of what we did in class. So we have 6.39 divided by 2.13. So I'm going to shade in 6.19. Or 39, excuse me, 6.39 on these blocks. So each one of these big squares is one hole. So I'm going to shade in 6 these boxes to represent 6 holes. That's 4 and 5 and 6. Now I need to fill in 3/10. Now each one of these is cut up into 100 pieces. So 1/10 would be 10 squares, which is 1 column. So I'm going to fill in 1 column for 1/10. Let's see if I can get the right size here. 1 column for 1/10, 2 columns for 2/10, and 3 columns for 3/10. And now I have 9 hundredths. So each one of these little squares is a hundredth. So I just fill in 9 of them. So there we go. So there's 6.39. Now, I'm going to divide this into groups of 2.13. So I'm going to separate it into groups of 2.13. So here's how I'm going to do that. The easiest way is to just do it by place value. So I'm going to circle 2 holes, 1/10. So I'm going to put outline one of my tenths, and then 3 hundredths. So there's 3 little baby squares here. That's 3 hundredths. Okay, so that's one group of 2.13. So now I'm going to circle another group. That's 2.1. That's 1/10 right there. And then 3 hundredths. And so another 3 hundredths there. And now 2 more holes. 1 more tenth. 3 more hundredths. Okay, so it looks like I have 3 groups of 2.13. So 6.39 divided by 2.13 is 3. And we do this model so that we understand what is happening when we're dividing 6.39 by 2.13. We're finding how many groups of this is in this. And that's what we did with this. That's what we did with this picture. So now we're going to do it numerically. Now here's how you do that. So 8.4 divided by 2.4. So 8.4 divided by 2.4. What you do is you want to get rid of this decimal point. You don't want a decimal point in your divisor. So if there is a decimal in your divisor, you just move it over to the end of the number. So this becomes 24. But if you do that, you have to move this over too, the same number of spaces. So now this becomes 84 divided by 24. Now 24 goes into 84, I believe, 3 times, but let me check that. And 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And if I multiply 24 times 4, I would get 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So 4 is too much, so it goes in 3 times. So then 3 times 24 is 72. And then I subtract, and I get 12. 12 is less than 24, but I don't want to leave a remainder. So I'm going to add a decimal and a couple of zeros after this, and just keep dividing. So I bring down the 0, and 24 goes into 120, I'm not sure how many times. Let me try 5, because that's right in the middle. So 24 times 5 is going to be exactly 120. So that's what I put up here, 5. 5 times 4 is 120, and I get 0 as my remainder. And so 2.4 goes into 8.4 exactly 3.5 times. So that's how we do that. Here's another one. We have 5.45 divided by 0.5. Now, we want to move, once again, we want to move this decimal over here. We want to get rid of it. We put it at the end. So then I move this decimal one place. I don't move it to the end of this number necessarily. I just move it one place. So now this becomes 54.5 divided by 5. Okay, so I bring this decimal up. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 4 0 times. So 1 times 5 is 5. I subtract. I get 0. Bring down the 4. 5 goes into 4. Oops. 5 goes into 4 0 times. 0 times 5 is 0. I subtract. I get 4. I bring down the 5. 5 goes into 45 9 times exactly. So this becomes 10.9. So 5.45 divided by 0.5 is 10.9. And our last example, no, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to do 14 divided by 0.5. That's what I meant to do. So I have 0.5 as my divisor, and then 14 is my dividend. Okay, so I have to move this decimal over to get rid of it. Now, what do I do here? This doesn't have a decimal. Well, this is a whole number, so there's an implied decimal at the very end. And I need to move it over one place. This gives me this big space here, and I can fill that with a 0. So this becomes 140 divided by 5. 5 goes into 1 0 times. 5 goes into 14 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. I subtract. I get 4. Then I bring down the 0. 5 goes into 40 exactly 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. And my answer is 28. 14 divided by 0.5 is 28. And hopefully those examples were helpful.